We used to have empires run by emperors, kingdoms run by kings, and now we have countries, well, you can work the rest out for yourself. Now, we've been talking about one Labor left leader. We'll move on to another, Anthony Albanese. He's making his way back to Australia. He's finally visiting the place. Hooray! He's obviously been off to the APEC summit in San Francisco, his 20th overseas trip in 18 months. Now, of course, he's been criticised for even attending, given the crises unfolding here at home, but he's hit back at Peter Dutton over all of this.
But this is important, that Australia be here. This is about our national economy and our national interest and national jobs. And the opportunity to be with the leaders of 21 economies that represent 75% of our trade. I just say to Peter Dutton, if you want to be the alternative Prime Minister of Australia, you need something more than just opportunism and comments like that. You need to be prepared to stand up for Australia's national interest. And I frankly think that it diminishes him as a leader to make the comments that he did.
The whole Airbus Albo thing has stuck quite well, Caroline. Is it fair or not?
Well, for starters, just on the comments that were made there, if you're really interested in diversification of international trade, you shouldn't be running around trying to put a bullet in the live sheep export industry,
Fair
right?
point.
So just maybe sit that one out, bro. I understand it is important to have international travel, and when you compare it to other prime ministers at a similar point in their prime ministership, he is about square-ish. But there has been a lot going on here, and I think a lot of people would like him at home. So he's binned 12 months and $450 million on the Voice to Parliament exercise, vanity project. Now, everyone's going, OK, well, what are we doing now? Because what is really important to us is cost of living, being able to pay our mortgages, making sure our kids are educated, being safe in our communities. And every time something goes wrong, in this case this week, that High Court decision, a couple of ministers are left grappling, can't find their backside with both hands, and he's on a plane out of the country to make sure that none of the proverbial sticks. And that there is the point that is actually really irritating. It's not that he takes international travel, it is that all these things keep going wrong, and he is not focusing on the things which are important to Australians right now. And there are a lot of very significant things, a lot of very fundamental things, economic things, and people would like the Prime Minister here instead of being overseas and sounding like he's three sheets to the wind.
Well, I guess the thing is, though, Kel, I mean, if the PM doesn't go, do we send Penny Wong, God forbid? Do we send Richard Marles? Who's the alternative?
Yes, well, you could send almost anyone. And what I quite like...
Marine Faruqi? And we'll just cut her citizenship off?
Well, she's the person who understands these things are about photo ops, because that's what she was threatening, remember? She was going to take away the photo ops. She knows that's what he's all about. I'd like them to send anyone who can pronounce the word important correctly. Look, Anthony, just between you and me, little intimate sort of thing, the middle consonant in important is a T. It's important. It's not important. So if you can get that right, we'd be very impressed.
At least he's better than the At least he's better than the Americans, Kelly. Just say it's really important. It's important. They don't pronounce either consonant. But look, I think he has to be at APEC. He has to be at the US and China as he was in recent weeks. And I think it's ironic. Maybe there are some of the other smaller trips that he didn't have to go on, but I suppose that was then, this is now. These are actually the trips that he can't possibly avoid. So I think it's a bit much to criticise him for that. The interesting thing, though, here, and again, I've got my just sort of pointy Labor deep dive hat on, is that it was while Albo was away that probably the government's biggest sort of PR crisis, leaving aside the voice and cost of living, of these immigration detainees being allowed into the community. This was the point, I think, where Richard Marles actually showed his true mettle and showed, ironically enough, what a leader of the Victorian right faction, what someone like that's instincts are about an issue like this. While we saw a lot of hand-wringing by a lot of the ministers who are theoretically in charge, and Andrew Giles is basically a card-carrying subsidiary of Daniel Andrews, the immigration minister, Marles just came in and said, nah, this is bullshit. like whatever the letter of the law
He
says.
reached
And
out to the opposition, didn't he?
And
He
went
talked
straight to
the
Dunn
opposition.
and said,
Yes.
how do we
Solved
fix
it.
this?
Yeah,
Because
correct.
And to be honest-
whatever the law says, this is not in line with community expectations and we need to fix it and not wait for the reasons from the High Court, which apparently was the Shangri-La before that, but do
Yeah.
it right now. And that is good, solid Labor right instincts. And the
I
fact that it
agree.
was Miles at home as acting PM who took the initiative and, of course, informed Anthony Albanese of what he was doing.
I think if Albo was here as PM, it wouldn't have happened as the way it did under
I would
Miles,
never
to be
say such a
perfectly
thing like
honest.
that,
but
Carl.
you wouldn't say it, but I will.